The glass of champagne felt like ice in her hand. It was her 10th wedding anniversary, and she was standing in her own home, watching her husband kiss another woman. But this wasn't a secret affair. This was a celebration. Her in-laws, the powerful Holt family, were toasting the new couple, welcoming the woman who had replaced her. They didn't just discard her. They threw a party to celebrate it. But they underestimated the woman they'd spent a decade trying to silence. They thought she would cry. They thought she would run. They never expected her to smile, walk to the front of the room, and pick up a microphone. The heavy, cream-colored invitation had felt like a promise. A decade of devotion. A celebration for Benjamin and Sienna Holt. Sienna stood in the grand, marble-floored foyer of the Holt family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, smoothing the front of her navy blue silk dress. She clutched a small, velvet-wrapped box. Inside was a vintage 1960s Omega watch, a gift for her husband, Ben. Their 10th anniversary. A decade. The last year had been a strained, lonely expanse of time. Ben was distant, working late at Holt Enterprises, the family's sprawling investment firm. He'd become short-tempered, his phone perpetually face down on the nightstand. Sienna had suggested counseling. He'd laughed it off as corporate stress. But this party, this felt like an apology, a grand gesture, which was his mother Margaret's signature move. Sienna hadn't even known about it until last week, when Margaret had called her, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Just show up at 7, dear. We're handling everything. It's time we truly celebrated you." Sienna adjusted the strap on her heel. She could hear the murmur of voices and the light tinkling of a piano from the main ballroom. She was nervous, but a fragile bud of hope was blooming in her chest. Maybe this is it, she thought. Maybe this is the turning point. She walked through the arched doorway into the ballroom. The room was stunning, filled with lilies and gardenias. A string quartet played softly in the corner. But the first thing she noticed was the crowd. It was packed, all of Ben's family, his formidable mother, Margaret, in a stiff Chanel suit, his father, Robert, nursing a whiskey, his aunts, uncles, and cousins. All of them were people who had, for 10 years, treated Sienna with a polite, icy condescension. And then she saw Ben. He was standing near the towering French doors that led to the terrace, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. He was wearing the expensive tuxedo she'd helped him pick out. But he wasn't alone. His arm was wrapped tightly around the waist of a striking blonde woman in a glittering, backless gold dress. The woman, who looked to be in her late 20s, laughed at something he whispered, her head tilted back. As Sienna watched, frozen, Ben leaned down and kissed the woman. It wasn't a peck. It was a long, possessive kiss, right in the middle of the room, in front of his entire family. Sienna's breath caught. The velvet box in her hand suddenly felt like a 10-pound weight. No one was looking at her. They were all looking at them. The music stopped. Margaret Holt stepped onto the small dais, tapping a champagne flute with a silver spoon. The room fell silent. "Good evening, everyone," Margaret said, her voice projecting effortlessly. "Thank you all for coming. We are here tonight to celebrate a truly momentous occasion. A new beginning." Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. A new beginning? Margaret smiled, a thin, reptilian expression. "As many of you know, the past year has been one of transition for our family. And tonight, we are overjoyed to finally, officially, welcome the woman who has brought our son, Benjamin, so much happiness, and who promises to be a true asset to the Holt legacy." She raised her glass, not to Sienna, but to the blonde woman in the gold dress. "To Tessa," Margaret declared, "and to her future with our son. Welcome to the family, dear." The room erupted in applause. "To Tessa!" they echoed. "To Ben and Tessa!" Sienna felt the blood drain from her face. The air in her lungs turned to cement. This wasn't an anniversary party. It was an execution. They were celebrating her replacement on her anniversary. She looked at Ben. He met her gaze across the room, his expression not guilty, but annoyed, as if her presence was an inconvenience. The humiliation was a physical force, a wave of heat that threatened to buckle her knees. She could feel the stares of the few guests who had finally noticed her standing there, a ghost at her own funeral. She saw Ben's cousin, Patrick, whisper something to his wife, who covered her mouth to hide a smirk. The tears welled, hot and acidic. Her first instinct was to run, to flee the ballroom, the house, this entire toxic life. But then, something else surfaced. A cold, hard clarity. For 10 years, she had been their fixer. She was the one who managed Ben's startup, a vanity project funded by his father, and made it look profitable. She was the one who remembered the birthdays, smoothed over Ben's social gaffes, and quietly corrected the fraudulent numbers in Margaret's Charity Foundation reports. She had been their quiet, competent, and utterly dismissed workhorse. They thought she was weak. They thought she was a doormat. They had gathered here tonight to prove it. The tears receded. The fragile hope in her chest hardened into something else, something heavy and cold. As the applause died down, Sienna Holt did the very last thing anyone expected. She smiled, a wide, bright, terrifyingly calm smile. She began to walk forward. The crowd parted for her, a sudden, confused silence falling. Ben's face went from annoyance to pale shock. Tessa's triumphant expression wavered. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Sienna walked directly to the dais, picking up a spare champagne flute from a passing waiter's tray. She stepped up next to a stunned Margaret Holt. She took the microphone from the stand. "I'd like to make a toast, too," Sienna said. Her voice was clear and steady, amplified throughout the silent room. She raised her glass, looking directly at Ben. "First," she began, her smile unwavering, "I want to thank my mother-in-law, Margaret. For 10 years, I've wondered what it would finally take for you to throw me a party. I guess I have my answer." A few nervous titters. Margaret's face was like granite. "And to Tessa," Sienna continued, turning her bright gaze on the blonde. "Welcome to the family. You've won a truly remarkable prize." She turned back to Ben. "And finally, to my husband, Benjamin Holt. On this, our 10th wedding anniversary." She let the words hang in the air. The shock in the room was palpable. You've all been toasting their new beginning, but you've forgotten to toast the ending. So allow me. She held her glass high. "Ben, thank you for showing me exactly who you are. And thank you, Margaret, for clarifying that my decade of service to this family is officially over." She paused, looking around at the stunned, wealthy faces. "And as a small anniversary gift, Ben," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that the microphone carried to every corner, "I've already spoken to my lawyer, and as my final act of fixing your life, I've already forwarded her the other set of books for the Holt Foundation. The ones I kept on my private server, the ones that show where all the donations really go." Margaret Holt's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. Sienna smiled. "Happy anniversary, darling. Enjoy your party." She set her glass down, placed the velvet-wrapped watch on the podium, and walked out of the ballroom. She didn't run. She walked, her back straight, the sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor, the only sound in the catastrophic silence she left behind. The moment the heavy oak doors of the Holt estate clicked shut behind her, Sienna's legs gave out. She slumped against the cold stone of the entryway, her body racked with tremors so violent she had to bite her lip to keep from screaming. The adrenaline that had carried her through the toast evaporated, leaving a raw, gaping void. She had done it. She had finally detonsated the bomb she had been sitting on for years. The drive from Greenwich back to the city was a blur of tears and rain-slicked highways. She didn't go to the sleek, sterile penthouse she shared with Ben. Had shared. She drove to a quiet, tree-lined street in Brooklyn Heights, parking her modest Subaru, the car Ben hated and called her charity wagon, in front of a pre-war brownstone. She let herself into apartment 2B. It was small, barely 500 square feet, with exposed brick and mismatched furniture. She had leased it 6 months ago under her maiden name, Sienna Wallace, using the small inheritance from her grandmother. It was her what-if plan. She'd told herself it was just a quiet place to write, a mental escape. Now she knew it was the lifeboat she'd been building all along. She locked the deadbolt, threw her keys on the small table, and collapsed onto the worn sofa, finally letting out the agonizing sobs she had held back. She wept for the man she had loved, the man she'd thought she married. She wept for the 10 years she had dedicated to a family that saw her as nothing more than an employee. She wept with rage, humiliation, and a terrifying, exhilarating sense of freedom. The next morning, Sienna woke to the sound of her phone vibrating violently on the hardwood floor. She'd slept in her dress. Her neck was stiff, her eyes swollen shut. She looked at the screen. 37 missed calls from Ben. 14 missed calls from Margaret Holt. 2 missed calls from Robert, and a string of increasingly frantic texts. Ben, Sienna, you have no idea what you've done. Call me now. Ben, you're hysterical. You're confused. Don't do this. Margaret, you will regret this, you ungrateful little... Ben, I'm coming to the penthouse. We are talking. Ben. Sienna, where are you? Where are you? She smiled grimly, switched the phone to Do Not Disturb, and threw it into a drawer. She showered, the hot water stinging her skin. As she toweled off, she caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked wrecked, but for the first time in a decade, her eyes were clear. She wasn't just a victim. She was a witness, and she had receipts. She spent the next 48 hours in a caffeine-fueled haze. Her small apartment became a war room. She had a secure laptop, a new burner phone, and a printer. She began methodically organizing the data she had mirrored from the Holt Enterprises servers over the last year. It wasn't just one set of other books for the charity. It was everything. It was the Camellia file, her code name for the ledger that detailed the systematic laundering of money from Holt Enterprises through the foundation. Margaret would secure inflated consulting fees from the firm's clients, funnel them as anonymous donations to the charity, and then use the foundation to pay for their personal luxuries, the condo in St. Bart's, the private jet, Ben's failed startup. It was the web of shell corporations Robert Holt had set up in Delaware and the Cayman Islands to hide assets and evade taxes. It was the emails. Oh, the emails. Ben complaining to his mother that Sienna was getting suspicious and needed to be handled. Margaret, in a scathing reply, outlining a plan to manage Sienna's exit once Ben had secured the Shaw merger. The Shaw merger. Sienna's blood ran cold. She searched the name. Gregory Shaw, CEO of Shaw Capital, a massive, aggressive private equity firm. And then she found the connection. Tessa. Her full name was Tessa Shaw. This wasn't an affair. This was a deal, a corporate merger sealed with a marriage. Ben wasn't leaving her for love. He was being traded for a better position in the new company. The party wasn't just a humiliation, it was a business transaction. They were celebrating the acquisition. Sienna realized she wasn't just fighting a divorce, she was interrupting a multi-billion-dollar conspiracy. She needed help. Not just a lawyer, but someone who understood the inside of the Holt machine. Her mind went to one name, Liam Peterson. Liam had been the head of internal audit at Holt Enterprises, a quiet, painfully methodical man who had been abruptly fired 2 years ago. The official reason was restructuring. But Sienna, who managed the company payroll at the time, knew the real reason. Liam had started asking questions about the foundation's accounting. Margaret had had him removed and blacklisted within 24 hours. Sienna found him on LinkedIn. He was now working as a freelance forensic accountant. She sent him a message from a new, anonymous email address. Mr. Peterson, my name is Sienna Wallace. I am a former associate of the Holt family. I believe you were wrongly terminated for discovering the same irregularities I have. I have proof. All of it. I need your help. He responded in 10 minutes. Where and when? I'm bringing the coffee. They met that night at a 24-hour diner in Queens. Liam looked older than she remembered, his hair grayer, but his eyes were just as sharp. Sienna slid a USB drive across the table. This is a sample, the Camellia file. Liam plugged it into a rugged laptop. He was silent for a full 5 minutes, his eyes scanning the ledger. Finally, he let out a long, low whistle. My God, he whispered, looking up at her. I only suspected this. I was looking at the branches. This is the root. This is the whole forest. They're merging with Shore Capital, Sienna said. They're trying to hide all this inside the new entity. The deal closes in 2 weeks. They'll bury it, Liam said, his face grim. Once that ink is dry, this data gets absorbed into a corporate structure so big it would take the SEC a decade to untangle it. If they ever even look. And they're pushing me out, Sienna said. They thought I'd just take a check and disappear. Liam looked at her, a new respect in his eyes. That speech at the party, that was you, wasn't it? It's all over the finance blogs. Holt anniversary party ends in chaos. They're spinning it as the rant of a scorned, unstable wife. Let them, Sienna said, her jaw tightening. They have no idea where I am. But they know I have this. They'll be moving fast to cover their tracks. They'll be trying to destroy the servers, Liam said, his mind already racing. Or worse, they'll lose a fire at their off-site storage. We have to move faster. He snapped the laptop shut. You don't just need a divorce lawyer, Sienna. You need a bulldog. You need the best financial crimes attorney in New York. I have a name, Sienna said. Eva Mendoza, they said at the same time. Liam nodded. Mendoza. She eats men like the Holts for breakfast. He looked at the USB drive in his hand. This is good, Sienna. But it's not enough to bring them down. What do you mean? It's all there. It's digital, he said. They'll claim it was fabricated, forged by a bitter wife. We need the physical proof, the original paper ledgers, the signed transfer agreements. They're not just on a server. A man like Robert Holt? He's old school. He'd keep a hard copy backup, a holy of holies file. Sienna's mind flashed back to the endless nights spent at the estate, organizing Margaret's charity auctions. The wine cellar, Sienna whispered. Liam raised an eyebrow. It's not just a wine cellar, Sienna said, her heart starting to pound. It's a vault. Behind the 19th century French Bordeaux, there's a climate-controlled, fireproof vault. Robert told me it was for his irreplaceable first editions. But I was always the one who had the key code. They never changed it. Liam stared at her. They never changed the code. They never thought I'd use it, Sienna said. They never thought I mattered. We need to get in there, Liam said, before they move it. They're all in panic mode, Sienna reasoned. They're at their lawyers' offices. They're trying to find me. They're not thinking about the vault yet. They think the only copies are the digital ones I have. Then we go tonight, Liam said, his eyes hard. It's time to make a withdrawal. The Holt estate was a fortress of dark stone and manicured dread. It sat on 20 acres of waterfront property, shielded from the road by a high iron gate and a small army of security cameras. This is insane, Liam muttered from the passenger seat of his beat-up Honda. They were parked on a service road half a mile away, wrapped in the damp, midnight fog. We're going to get arrested for breaking and entering. We're not breaking. I'm entering, Sienna replied, her voice steady. She was dressed in black jeans, a black turtleneck, and sneakers. I'm Sienna Holt. It is, until a judge says otherwise. Still my residence. You're my accountant, here to help me retrieve personal financial documents. And what about the alarm? The main house alarm is separate from the cellar vault, Sienna explained, her mind running through the blueprints she knew by heart. The gate code is Ben's birthday. Pathetic, I know. The alarm for the house itself? They'll have changed that. But we're not going through the house. We're going through the garden. She had planned this. For 10 years, she had been the one to coordinate the groundskeepers, the pool maintenance, the wine deliveries. She knew every weakness of the estate because she had been the one to manage them. They drove to a secondary service gate, one used for landscaping. The code was, as she'd expected, the same. They parked the car in the shadows of a large oak tree, far from the main drive. The cameras loop every 3 minutes, Sienna whispered, checking her watch. The groundskeeper Paul taught me. He takes a smoke break here. We have 45 seconds to get from the car to the cellar entrance as soon as the camera pans left. Liam looked at her, astounded. Who are you? I'm the woman who paid attention, Sienna said. Now. They moved. Fast and silent, they slipped through the immaculate rose garden, past the dark, gaping maw of the pool, and to a set of heavy, slanted bilge doors hidden behind a wall of English ivy. It was the delivery entrance for the wine cellar. Sienna's hands trembled as she punched in the code. 1026. Their wedding date. The irony, she thought, is almost suffocating. The lock beeped green. With a shared look, she and Liam heaved the heavy wooden doors open and slipped inside, closing them just as the security camera panned back. They were in. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and aging cork. Rows upon rows of expensive wine lined the walls. Liam aimed a small flashlight down the main corridor. This way, Sienna said. She led him to the back, to a wall that looked like any other rack of wine. She pushed aside a case of Chateau Margaux to reveal a small steel keypad. She entered her own birthday. Margaret always told me I was self-centered. Time to prove her right. A heavy, pneumatic hiss echoed in the small space, and a section of the wall receded, revealing a thick, bank vault door. Sienna spun the wheel, pulled the handle, and the door swung open. The vault was a 10 room, climate-controlled and sterile. On one side were shelves of rare books, on the other a row of grey, fireproof filing cabinets. "Bingo!" Liam breathed. They didn't have time to be delicate. Liam pulled a set of high-security lockpicks from his bag. "I was hoping we wouldn't need these." "You won't," Sienna said. She walked to a small, unassuming painting of a Scottish landscape, a painting she herself had bought for Robert. She lifted it off the wall. Behind it was a small, mundane key hanging on a nail. "You're kidding me," Liam said. Robert's tragic flaw, Sienna said, grabbing the key. He believes his own genius. He thinks a combination lock is for employees, but a simple key, hidden by him, is foolproof. She unlocked the first cabinet. It was labeled Foundation, 2010, 2015. They hit the jackpot. It was all there. The original signed wire transfer authorizations, the hard copy ledgers, their columns filled with Robert's spidery handwriting, memos from Margaret outlining the donation strategy, and something new. "Sienna, look at this," Liam said, pulling a file from the back of a drawer. It was labeled Project Nightingale. Inside were documents related to the Shaw merger. But they weren't merger documents. They were, Sienna realized with dawning horror, a setup. The Holts were systematically creating a false paper trail. They were structuring the merger to create a new, special projects division, seeding it with all their fraudulent assets, and installing a single director to oversee it. The director listed on the paperwork was Benjamin Holt. "They're going to sacrifice him," Sienna whispered, her blood turning to ice. "The merger goes through. The fraud is hidden inside Ben's new division. When the SEC eventually finds it, Margaret and Robert will be clean. They'll claim their prodigal son went rogue. Ben will take the fall. All of it." "And Tessa Shaw?" Liam asked, shuffling through papers. "Her father gets the company, free and clear of the Holt's toxic debt, which will all be neatly packaged with Ben. Ben goes to prison, and Tessa, the grieving fiancé, inherits his, now clean, portion of the shares. It's perfect." "We have to take all of it," Liam said, grabbing a collapsible duffel bag from his pack. They began stuffing the files, the ledgers, every incriminating piece of paper, into the bag. They worked for 10 minutes, a frantic, silent rush. When the bag was full, they shut the cabinet, replaced the key, and locked the vault. They were almost at the cellar door when Sienna's burner phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. "They know you're there." The silent alarm in the vault just tripped. It alerts Robert's personal cell, not the police. "You have 2 minutes." Sienna froze. "Liam, we have to go. Now. Someone tipped them off." "What? How? It doesn't matter." They scrambled up the cellar steps. As Sienna pushed the bilge doors open, she heard the sound. A car engine, coming fast up the main drive. "Run!" They sprinted across the lawn, adrenaline surging. They were 100 feet from the service gate when the main house floodlights snapped on, illuminating the entire estate in a harsh, artificial daylight. A black Range Rover screeched to a halt on the gravel drive. Ben jumped out of the passenger side. "Sienna!" he roared, his face a mask of purple rage. "You thief! You're not taking anything!" From the driver's side, a large man in a dark suit, Margaret's personal security, started running towards them. "Go, Liam! Get the data to Mendoza!" Sienna yelled. "Don't wait for me! I'm not leaving you! You are! It's the only way we win! Go!" Liam hesitated, his face torn. But he saw the resolution in her eyes. He nodded once, clutching the duffel bag, and sprinted for the service gate. Sienna turned to face her husband. The security guard was 50 feet away and closing. Ben ran at her. "You're finished, Sienna. You're going to jail." He lunged for her. Sienna, acting on pure instinct, sidestepped and stuck out her foot. Ben, clumsy and enraged, tripped hard over her leg and went sprawling onto the manicured grass, skidding on the morning dew. The security guard grabbed her, spinning her around, his fingers digging into her arms like steel bands. "Let go of me!" Sienna screamed. Ben scrambled to his feet, his tuxedo trousers stained with mud and grass. His face was twisted with a hatred she had never seen. "Where is it?" he spat. "Where is the data you stole?" "I have no idea what you're talking about, Ben," Sienna said, her voice shaking but defiant. "Liar!" He raised his hand. "Don't you dare!" came a cold, clear voice. Margaret Holt stepped out of the back of the Range Rover. She was wearing a silk dressing gown, her face pale with fury. Robert was right behind her. "Let her go, Frank," Margaret commanded. The security guard released Sienna. Margaret walked over to Sienna, her eyes scanning the dark service road where Liam had disappeared. "Your little accountant got away, did he?" she sneered. "It doesn't matter. You can't prove anything. It's all circumstantial, fabricated." "Is it, Margaret?" Sienna said, rubbing her arms. "Is the Project Nightingale file circumstantial?" The colour drained from Robert's face. Ben just looked confused. "Project what?" Margaret's composure cracked. You're going to set him up," Sienna said, nodding at Ben. "You're going to let him take the fall for everything, your own son. All to seal your deal with Gregory Shaw." Ben's head snapped toward his mother. Mother. What is she talking about? Mother? "Shut up, Benjamin," Margaret snapped. She turned back to Sienna, her eyes reptilian. "You have no idea what you're meddling in, you foolish girl. You think you're so clever. You think you've won?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "We will crush you. We will bury you in litigation until you are begging on the street. Your little lawyer, Mendoza, will be disbarred. Your accountant friend will be arrested. And you will be in a psychiatric hospital. We've been documenting your instability for months. This little break-in? It's the perfect confirmation." She smiled. "You have nothing. You are nothing." Sienna met her gaze. "You're right about one thing, Margaret. I am a foolish girl. I was foolish enough to love your son. I was foolish enough to protect this family. But I'm not foolish enough to come here without an insurance policy." "What?" Sienna tapped the small hidden button on the digital audio recorder clipped to the inside of her waistband. She'd turned it on the second she got out of the car. "I've been recording this entire conversation. Your threats, your admission to handling me, your confirmation of the setup." She then looked past Margaret at the flashing blue and red lights that had just pulled silently up the service road, right behind Liam's parked car. "And," Sienna said, a slow, cold smile spreading across her face, "I was also the one who tripped the real alarm, the one that alerts the police." As Margaret's face contorted in disbelief, 2 Greenwich police officers stepped out of the shadows, their expressions grim. "Mrs. Holt?" the first officer said. "We received a 911 dispatch. A woman reported she was being held against her bill by armed security at this address." Sienna raised her hand. "That was me, officer. I'm Sienna Holt. This is my husband, Ben. And these are his parents. They've just threatened my life and admitted to a massive financial conspiracy, and I have it all on tape." The Greenwich police station was a whirlwind of sterile light and bureaucratic indifference. Sienna sat on a hard plastic bench, a cup of vending machine coffee growing cold in her hands. It had taken an hour. The officers, clearly intimidated by the Holt name, had separated everyone. Sienna had calmly played the recording. The audio was crystal clear. Margaret's threats, Robert's panicked silence, Ben's accusations. It wasn't enough to arrest the Holts for fraud, but it was more than enough to establish credible threat and unlawful restraint. The police had filed a report and issued a temporary restraining order against Ben and his parents. They were forbidden from contacting Sienna or coming within 500 feet of her. It was a small victory, but a crucial one. It bought her time. When the police released her, she found Liam waiting in the parking lot. He was pacing, his face fraught with worry. "Sienna, my God, I thought—" "I'm fine," she said, managing a shaky smile. "Did you get to Mendoza?" "I drove straight to her office," Liam said. "Woke her up. She's had a team of paralegals scanning and uploading the files to a secure server all night. She called it the mother lode. She's already filing the injunction against the merger. Good, Sienna said, climbing into his car, because we have a new problem. Project Nightingale. They're going to pin it all on Ben. Liam nodded grimly as he drove. It's a classic play, the rogue executive. It insulates Robert and Margaret completely. It's monstrous, Sienna whispered. He's their son. He's a means to an end, Sienna. Just like you were. Just like Tessa Shaw is. Sienna was silent for a long time as the skyline of Manhattan grew closer. I hate him, Liam. I hate him for what he did to me. But he's a fool. He's a weak, pathetic fool who's been manipulated by his mother his entire life. He doesn't deserve to take the fall for their crimes. Liam glanced at her. You're thinking of warning him? I'm thinking of offering him a deal, Sienna said. He testifies against his parents. In exchange, we ask the DA for leniency. Sienna, that's compassionate and incredibly naive. He's not going to turn on them. It's his family. His family is about to feed him to the wolves, Sienna said. He's stupid, but he's not that stupid. He'll listen to self-preservation. She arrived at Eva Mendoza's office at 7 a.m. Eva was a compact woman in her 50s with intelligent, restless eyes and a pinstripe suit that looked sharp enough to cut glass. Her office was a stark, modern expanse of glass and steel overlooking Central Park. Mrs. Holt, Eva said, not standing up but gesturing to a chair. Or do you prefer Miss Wallace? Miss Wallace, Sienna said, sitting. Good. Holt is about to become a very dirty name. Eva tapped a stack of files. Liam Peterson's assessment was correct. What you've brought me isn't just a divorce case. It's a RICO case. It's wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion and money laundering. The Holts aren't just rich, they're organized criminals. And they're setting up Ben to be the fall guy, Sienna said. Eva nodded. Project Nightingale. It's brilliant in a sociopathic way. We've already filed the injunction, citing your community property stake in Holt Enterprises and the clear evidence of asset fraud. The merger is frozen. The judge granted a temporary halt, effective immediately. Sienna felt a rush of relief so profound her knees went weak. So, we've stopped it. We've paused it, Eva corrected. Gregory Shaw is going to fight this. The Holts will fight this. They're going to paint you as a liar. Which brings me to your next move. I want to offer Ben a deal, Sienna said. Eva listened, her expression unreadable, as Sienna laid out her plan. He testifies. He gives us the color, the day-to-day conversations, the things that aren't in the ledgers. In return, we position him as a cooperating witness. Eva leaned back. You're betting on the rat to jump off the sinking ship. I'm betting on the coward to save his own skin. It's a risk, Eva said. If he warns his mother, he could tip our entire hand. They already know we have the vault data. They don't know we have the recording from last night, and they don't know we understand Project Nightingale. That's our leverage. Eva studied her. All right, Miss Wallace, you know the man. Set the meeting, but I'm equipping you, and I want a panic button. 2 hours later, Sienna was sitting in a private booth at a diner in Midtown, one she knew Ben would never frequent. She'd sent him a single text from her new burner. Ben, they're setting you up. Project Nightingale. I have the file. If you want to save yourself, meet me. You have 30 minutes. Come alone, or the file goes straight to the New York Times. She knew his paranoia and his narcissism would force him to come. He would believe he could outsmart her. At 9:17 a.m., he slid into the booth. He looked terrible. He hadn't slept, his eyes were bloodshot, and he reeked of stale scotch. Sienna, he hissed, sliding a manila envelope onto the table. This is it. The settlement. It's more than generous. $5 million. You sign the NDA, you give me back everything you stole, and you disappear. Sienna didn't even look at the envelope. She pushed it back. I'm not here for a settlement, Ben. Then what? More? You want more? After you broke into my parents' house and tried to frame me. I'm here to save you, Sienna said, her voice flat. Save me? You? You're the one who needs saving. My mother's lawyers are going to. Your mother, Sienna interrupted, is going to send you to federal prison. She slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was the signature page from the Project Nightingale file, the one that named him director of the new fraudulent division. Ben stared at it. What? What is this? This is the merger. This is my new position. I'm going to be a director. You're going to be the patsy, Ben, Sienna said, leaning in. Look at the date. It's post-dated. They've packaged every illegal transaction, every laundered dollar from the foundation, every hidden asset, and they've put it all into your division. When the feds look, they won't find Robert or Margaret. They'll find you. Ben's face went white. He was processing it, the cogs turning slowly. No, my mother. She wouldn't. She would, Sienna said, her voice devoid of pity. She's doing it right now. Why do you think she's been so eager for this merger? Why do you think she pushed Tessa on you? Tessa loves me. Sienna almost laughed. Ben, Tessa is Gregory Shaw's daughter. This isn't a marriage, it's a corporate restructuring. You're the liability they're dumping, and she's the one making sure it happens. They're all in on it. Your parents, the Shaws, everyone but you. The truth hit him. She could see it. The realization that he wasn't the prince. He was the pawn. His entire world, his confidence, his new life, all of it was a lie constructed by his parents to facilitate their escape. He looked down at his hands. He was shaking. What do I do? He whispered. He looked up, his eyes, for the first time in their entire relationship, filled with genuine, pathetic terror. You're going to talk, Sienna said. You're going to go to my lawyer's office, and you're going to give a full, videotaped deposition. You're going to tell us everything, every conversation you overheard, every trip to the Cayman Islands, every time your father bragged about how clever his accounting was. And if I do? If you do, Sienna said, my lawyer will offer your cooperation to the U.S. Attorney's office. You'll still go to prison, Ben, but you'll go for 3 years as a witness, not 30 as the kingpin. He stared at her, his mind broken. And if I don't? Sienna stood up. Then you'd better get used to that $5 million offer, because it's all you'll have to trade for cigarettes when you're in cell block D. You have 1 hour to decide. She dropped a business card for Eva Mendoza's office on the table and walked out, leaving her husband to stew in the ruins of his life. She stepped out into the bright morning sunlight, feeling exhausted, but clean. She'd given him the choice. The moral high ground felt good. As she turned the corner, her new phone buzzed, a text from the same unknown number as the night before, the one that had warned her at the estate. Good move with Ben. He's a coward, he'll flip, but you're missing the real target. It's not Margaret. It's not even Robert. It's Shaw. He's not just merging. He's orchestrating a hostile takeover. He knows about the fraud. He's letting the Holt set Ben up so he can buy the company for pennies at a bankruptcy auction after the feds seize it. They're all playing each other, and you're in the middle. Sienna stopped dead on the sidewalk. She typed a reply. Who is this? The reply came instantly. This is Tessa. Sienna stared at the phone. Tessa, the woman in the gold dress, the woman who had kissed her husband. Her fingers trembled as she typed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Tessa, because the Holts are amateurs. My father is the real shark, and I have my own reasons for wanting to see him go down." "Tessa, meet me. 4 p.m., the reflecting pool at the Met. Come alone. Don't tell your lawyer." Sienna's mind was reeling. This was a trap. It had to be. But the information, it felt true. The hostile takeover angle made perfect sense. Gregory Shaw wasn't merging with the Holts. He was consuming them. She spent the next few hours at Eva Mendoza's office, watching through a one-way mirror as a pale, sweating Benjamin Holt told his entire life story to a camera. He was, as Sienna had predicted, a coward, and he was a font of information. He described in pathetic detail how his parents would celebrate fooling the IRS, how they referred to their investors as idiots, and how Project Nightingale had been explained to him as a clever way to protect his inheritance. He had, in effect, signed his parents' arrest warrants, but Sienna's mind was on Tessa. At 3:45 p.m., she told Ava she needed air. She walked from the Midtown office to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She was terrified, but she was also consumed by a new, burning curiosity. She found Tessa sitting on the edge of the reflecting pool in the Sackler wing. She was wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt, her blonde hair in a ponytail. She looked less like a corporate vampire and more like a college student. Sienna sat on the other side of the pool, leaving 10 feet of water and stone between them. "You came," Tessa said. She didn't look at Sienna. She watched the water. "Why, Tessa?" Sienna asked, her voice tight. "Why are you doing this? That night? The party?" "The party was a performance," Tessa said, her voice flat and low. "A necessary one. I had to prove my loyalty to Margaret. I had to be the perfect, ambitious, ruthless gold digger she wanted. If she'd sensed for a second that I weren't what? You're Gregory Shaw's daughter." "I am," Tessa said, finally turning to look at Sienna. Her eyes were a cold, intelligent blue. "And Gregory Shaw is a monster." She took a deep breath. 16 years ago, my father had a business partner, a man named Michael Donovan. He was my godfather. He was a brilliant man, a kind man, my father's best friend, until he disagreed with my father on a deal. Gregory drove him into bankruptcy. He fabricated evidence of embezzlement, ruined his reputation, and left him with nothing. Michael killed himself. Sienna said nothing. The air in the atrium felt heavy. "I was 12, Tessa continued, "and I swore I would destroy my father. I would take away the only thing he has ever loved, his company, his legacy. So I got the business degree. I went to work for him. I became his perfect daughter, his successor, and I've been gathering evidence against him ever since." "The Holts?" Sienna asked. "The Holts were my way in," Tessa said. "I discovered, through my work at Shaw Capital, that my father was targeting Holt Enterprises. He'd found their Camellia file. He knew they were dirty. He saw them as easy prey. He tasked me with getting close to the family, to the weak link." "Ben," Sienna breathed. "Ben," Tessa confirmed, a flicker of disgust on her face. "It was repulsive. But I did my job. I fell in love with him. And Margaret, eager to align with the Shaw name, ate it up. She practically threw Ben at me. So the party," Sienna said. "You knew I would be there." "Yes. Margaret planned it specifically. She wanted to humiliate you." Tessa looked down. "Of all the things I've done, that is the one I regret. You were collateral damage in my war, Sienna, and I am sorry for that." Sienna processed this. So, that night, Sienna said, when you texted me that they knew I was in the vault. I was at the estate with Ben, Tessa said. I saw the alert from the vault pop up on Robert's tablet. I've been mirroring his devices for months. I knew it had to be you. I sent the warning. An alliance. A strange, terrifying, and powerful alliance. My father's plan is simple, Tessa said, standing up. He's letting your lawyers and the DA do the work. He wants the Holts arrested. He wants the company's stock to collapse to zero. Then he'll use an offshore entity to buy the entire company out of receivership for pennies on the dollar. He gets all their assets for nothing. The fraud is wiped clean in the bankruptcy, and he walks away clean. So, Sienna said, we've just been helping him. Yes, but not anymore. Tessa pulled a flash drive from her pocket. This is my file, not on the Holts, on shore. It's the proof. The offshore accounts he's using. The memos detailing his plan to exploit the Holt insolvency. It proves he knew about the fraud before the merger and was actively concealing it from the SEC to manipulate the stock. That's the crime that will put him away. She held out the drive. My father is hosting a gala tomorrow night. A fundraiser. It's really a victory party. I'm supposed to introduce my father. And when I do, I'm going to introduce the real Gregory Shaw. And you, Sienna, you're going to be in the front row to watch. Sienna took the drive. He'll destroy you. He's your father. He'll cut you off. He can't destroy what I already hate, Tessa said. He can't take away anything I want. This isn't about money for me. It's about justice. The kind of justice that's been waiting 16 years. The gala was at Cipriani on 42nd Street, a cavernous hall of Italian marble and raw power. Sienna walked in, not through the service entrance, but through the front door. She wore a simple, elegant black dress, flanked by Eva Mendoza and a tuxedoed Liam Peterson. The U.S. Attorney's office is on board, Eva whispered. Agents are at every exit. They have Ben in protective custody. His deposition was the final nail. They're moving on the Holts tonight. And Shaw? Sienna asked. The DA is handling that. Eva smiled thinly. Tessa's evidence of stock manipulation was compelling. They entered the main hall. Sienna spotted Margaret and Robert Holt near the bar, looking pale and hunted. When they saw Sienna, Margaret's face went white with rage. They made a hasty retreat toward a side parlor. They're spooked, Liam murmured. It doesn't matter, Eva said. They're not leaving this building. Sienna's gaze found Gregory Shaw, holding court like the king of the room. At his side was Tessa, back in her uniform, a stunning silver gown, playing the part of the devoted daughter. Tessa's eyes met Sienna's across the floor. For a fraction of a second, the mask dropped. Tessa gave a single, imperceptible nod. It's time. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the main stage. Gregory Shaw stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, he boomed. We are here to celebrate the future, and tonight is special. We are on the verge of a new, bold partnership. A joining of two great families, Shaw Capital and Holt Enterprises. He was met with polite applause. And to tell you more, Gregory continued, I'd like to bring up the person who made this all possible. My brilliant, beautiful daughter, Tessa Shaw. Tessa glided onto the stage, took the microphone, and kissed him on the cheek. Thank you, Father, for that glowing introduction. She turned to the crowd, poised and confident. My father is right. We are here to celebrate a new, bold partnership. And as the architect of that partnership, I'd like to give you all the real details. On the two massive screens flanking the stage, the gala logo vanished. It was replaced by a split screen, the Project Nightingale file and the Shaw Capital logo. Gregory Shaw's smile froze. "Tessa, what is this? Some kind of joke?" "It's not a joke, Father," Tessa said, her voice flat and cold. "It's an acquisition strategy." She clicked a remote. A scanned wire transfer appeared. "This," Tessa announced to the silent, baffled room, "is a wire transfer from a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, owned by my father, to bribe an SEC official to slow-walk his investigation into Holt Enterprises until after my father's acquisition was complete." The room erupted in gasps. "Tessa, stop this! Security!" Gregory roared. "It's true," she continued, her voice rising. "My father, Gregory Shaw, didn't want to merge with the Holts. He discovered their massive, decades-long fraud and decided to use it. He's been planning to let them go to prison and buy their company in a fire sale, defrauding not only the Holts, but every shareholder and investor in this room." "She's lying," he yelled, lunging for the microphone. "Am I?" Tessa stepped aside as the screen filled with a new image. A bank statement. "This is the offshore account, Father. The one you set up for me. The one you were going to gift me after the deal closed. The one you're using to hide the profits." At that exact moment, the side doors to the hall burst open. They weren't gala security. They were federal agents. "Gregory Shaw," one agent yelled, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and securities manipulation." As two agents grabbed a sputtering, disbelieving Shaw, another group headed for the side parlor where the Holts were hiding. "And," Tessa said, her voice shaking just slightly, 16 years ago, my father did the same thing to a man named Michael Donovan. He destroyed him. He drove him to suicide." She looked right at her father, who had stopped struggling, his face a mask of pure hatred. "This is for him." The room was chaos. Sienna saw Margaret and Robert Holt being led out in handcuffs. Margaret was spitting. Robert was just a collapsed, grey man. Sienna turned and saw Ben standing in a doorway with two federal agents. He had been brought here to witness it. He wasn't in cuffs, but he wasn't free. He watched his parents being arrested. He looked at Tessa, the avenging angel on the stage. Then his eyes found Sienna. She was just watching him. No anger. No hate. Just an ending. He looked for the first time like he understood. He understood what he had thrown away. He dropped his head, a broken, pathetic figure, and let the agents lead him away. Sienna watched him go. She felt nothing. No satisfaction. No pain. Just quiet. She turned and found Tessa standing beside her, trembling as the adrenaline faded. "It's done," Tessa said. "It's done," Sienna agreed. They stood side by side, bound by a shared, complicated justice. "What now?" Sienna asked. Tessa looked at the chaos, at the ruins of her father's and the Holt's empires. "Now," she said, "we rebuild. Something better." Sienna nodded. She turned and walked out of the gala, leaving the noise and the wreckage behind her. She didn't look back. 6 months later, Sienna Wallace helmed the Wallace Initiative, a pro bono legal foundation she'd founded to help women in abusive marriages. Her new office overlooked the bustling streets of Brooklyn, a view that was all hers. The Holt-Shaw scandal was over. Robert Holt was silenced by a stroke, his empire gone. Margaret, defiant, was convicted and serving 25 years. Ben's cooperation earned him 3 years. His rambling apology letter went straight into her trash, unread. Gregory Shaw fought, but Tessa's perfect evidence sealed his 15-year sentence. Tessa and Liam had partnered, forming a new company from the ruins to create a restitution fund for victims. Sienna's phone buzzed. Margaret's final appeal was denied. It was truly over. She looked at her new case, a waitress whose husband was trying to claim she was unstable to leave her with nothing. Sienna picked up her pen. The old, cold clarity was back. But it wasn't anger, it was purpose. They had thrown a party to celebrate her defeat, but they had only succeeded in setting her free. The woman who walked into that party was gone. The one who walked out was Sienna Wallace. And she was just getting started. They thought she was just a wife. They thought she was a decoration, an accessory they could discard like last season's fashion. But they forgot one thing. The person who quietly fixes everything is the person who knows where all the secrets are buried. Sienna turned her greatest humiliation into her ultimate liberation. She didn't just walk away. She took the whole rotten structure down with her. Her story is a powerful reminder that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. What did you think of Sienna's shocking move? Did the Holts get what they deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this story of drama, twists, and ultimate karmic justice, please make sure to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story.